What really happens when we die? Is death the end, or is it a doorway? We spend our entire lives running from this question. We distract ourselves with careers, with relationships, with digital noise. But at some point, whether through the loss of someone we love or the quiet emptiness that creeps in during sleepless nights, the question comes back. Not as theory, but as a lived reality. So, what happens after the last breath? Do we vanish into a void of nothingness? Or do we awaken into a state more real than life itself? Welcome, soul traveler. You're about to enter the deepest mystery known to human consciousness. Today, we open the pages of one of the most profound spiritual texts ever written, the Bardo Thodol, better known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This isn't just a book about dying. It's a guide for living, a cosmic map, a whispered manual for the moments when the illusions of this world finally dissolve. The Bardo Thodol offers a vision of existence that challenges everything we've been taught in the modern West. Here, death is not the opposite of life. It's a continuation, a transition, a portal. According to this ancient wisdom, consciousness does not cease with the death of the body. It shifts, it expands, and it enters what the Tibetans call the Bardo, a series of transitional states where the soul encounters the raw, unfiltered essence of its own mind. But before we dive into the bardos themselves, we must understand where this text comes from. The Bardo Thodol is attributed to Padmasambhava, a legendary 8th century mystic who brought Buddhism to Tibet. He wasn't just a monk or philosopher, he was a spiritual alchemist, a master of both inner and outer worlds, a being said to possess cities, spiritual powers, born of deep, direct realization. Padmasambhava understood something most people ignore, that the moment of death is one of the most powerful opportunities for spiritual awakening. Because when the physical body dissolves and all the roles and identities we cling to fall away, what remains is the naked mind, unfiltered, unprotected, unmasked. But there's a problem. Most people, when they die, are not prepared for this. Instead of recognizing the truth of their own divine nature, they panic. They grasp, they fear, and in doing so, they miss the very doorway to liberation. That's why Padmasambhava wrote this guide, not just for monks or mystics, but for anyone seeking truth. It was meant to be read aloud to the dying, or better yet, studied in life so that we don't arrive at death as strangers to ourselves. Now here's where it gets truly fascinating. The Bardo Thodol describes 3 major phases after death, 3 bardos, each one mirroring a deeper layer of the mind. But these aren't merely linear stages. They're archetypal landscapes, internal realms that reflect the quality of our consciousness. And while they're described as post-death states, the deeper teaching is this: these bardos are happening now, in dreams, in meditation, in every moment where the ego dissolves and the raw mind emerges. When the body takes its last breath, the first bardo begins. It's called the Chikai Bardo, the moment of dying. Here, the soul experiences a dissolution of the physical elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. Each element corresponds not just to the body, but to aspects of identity. You might feel your sense of solidity fading, followed by a loosening of emotions, thoughts, and finally, emerging into pure space. Then comes the clear light. This is not metaphor. It is described as a vast, brilliant radiance, a light more vivid than the sun, yet completely peaceful. This is the true nature of the mind. It is what many traditions call the higher self, the God consciousness, or simply being. If you can recognize this light, not with your eyes but with the part of you that is eternal, then liberation is instant. There's no need to pass through anything else. No more cycles of death and rebirth. No more forgetting. But there's a catch. If your mind is still attached to form, still frightened of letting go, still tethered to identity, then the light feels overwhelming, even terrifying. And instead of merging with it, you recoil. You retreat back into separation. And this is where the second bardo begins, the Koniad Bardo, also known as the Bardo of Visions. Here, the soul finds itself surrounded by powerful visions, projections of its own psyche, its own karma, its own repressed desires and fears. It's like being inside a dream where everything is amplified 1,000-fold. Some of these visions are beautiful, radiant deities, peaceful Buddhas, beings of light. Others are terrifying, wrathful gods, monstrous figures, chaotic landscapes. But the key teaching is this: none of it is real. They are all mental fabrications, energetic mirrors reflecting your internal state. They're not beings you meet. They are aspects of you. And if you can recognize that, if you can stay lucid, calm, and centered, you can still attain liberation. But most people don't. The peaceful deities are so unfamiliar that the soul doubts them. And the wrathful ones evoke fear, triggering the soul to flee, to grasp, to look for safety, which only deepens the illusion of separation. This entire bardo is like a psychedelic mirror. Everything unprocessed within you will surface. All the masks come off. All the games are over. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it fate." In the Coniad Bardo, fate is the unconscious made manifest. This is why the Tibetans emphasize spiritual practice in life, not to escape death, but to become intimate with it. To see through the illusions of ego before they become monstrous projections in the bardo. And then comes the third bardo, the Sitpa bardo, the bardo of becoming and of rebirth. At this stage, the soul feels the gravitational pull of unfinished karma. There's still attachment, still fear, still identity. And so, a desire arises, not consciously but instinctively, to be born again, to continue the cycle. In this bardo, the soul begins to seek out a new body. Visions appear, often of couples in sexual union, symbolizing the doorway to a new incarnation. And depending on the soul's karmic inclinations, it is drawn towards specific parents, specific circumstances, specific energies. This process is not random. It is magnetically precise. You are not born into a life by accident. You are drawn into it by the resonance of your inner world. And here's something even more mysterious. The Bardo Thodol teaches that even in this final stage, liberation is still possible. If the soul can maintain clarity, if it can resist the impulse to grasp, if it can remain aware that all these visions are just mind, then it doesn't need to be reborn. But again, few achieve this, because the desire to exist, to be someone, to have a body and an identity, is overwhelming. And so the soul is pulled back into the wheel. Samsara continues. Yet the teachings are not hopeless. Quite the opposite. They remind us that we are not prisoners of fate. We are architects of perception. Every thought, every choice, every moment of awareness or ignorance is a brushstroke painting our inner world. And that world becomes the stage for our afterlife. Death is not the end. It's a mirror, a revealer of truth. It shows us who we really are, not through judgment but through reflection. And the Bardo Thodol is the mirror's guidebook. So what does this mean for us, here, alive, right now? It means that the time to prepare for death is now. Not through fear, not through dogma, but through self-inquiry, through meditation, through the daily practice of letting go. Every time you release a grudge, you're preparing for death. Every time you sit with your emotions instead of running, you're preparing for the bardos. Every time you glimpse the stillness behind thought, the spaciousness behind the story of me, you're touching the clear light. And maybe, just maybe, when the last breath comes, you'll recognize it. You'll say, I know this. And instead of clinging, you'll open. And in that opening, you'll be free. Not because you believe the right things, but because you remembered what you truly are. A spark of the infinite, temporarily dreaming itself into form. Let us live our lives like travelers who know we are passing through. Let us prepare not just for death, but for truth. Because in the end, death doesn't ask if you were successful or popular or busy. It asks, how much did you love? And perhaps more importantly, how deeply did you remember? If this journey stirred something in you, if it sparked a new curiosity about the mystery of life and what comes after, then I invite you to keep going. Watch our last video. Quantum manifestation is simple. That's why nobody gets it. We live in a world obsessed with action. Vision boards, affirmations, hustle culture. But what if manifestation doesn't come from trying harder, but from shifting your frequency? Click now to continue the journey. Because the more we remember who we are, the less we fear what we're not. Thank you for watching.